Chinese, the word for crisis is the same as the word for opportunity. So exactly what you said about Jordan Burroughs, right? That the fact that the word itself is presented as an opportunity fundamentally changes how you approach any scenario. Is this a crisis? This is going to be something negative, or is this an opportunity for me to do something great? It's a fascinating idea that we can change the way we frame a situation and then approach it from an entirely different angle.
Yeah. So going off that, like for me, I know I've kind of programmed my internal dialogue through the things I listen to and the things I
Hmm.
study and the things I read, the things I do basically, right?
Hmm.
For you, have you found like through reading or well, I'm sure you have, but what best ways or practices have you used in order to program yourself? 'Cause I think a lot of people, it's easy to say.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, man, just think positive,
Yeah.
right? It's like, okay, yeah, that's easy enough. But then people, the subconscious, what they listen to, what they hear, seeps in their subconscious, and all of a sudden they're thinking negative again. Like, what would you suggest in terms of like of programming?
So there's I stumbled across a really interesting idea from Jordan Peterson, who
Mhm.
is he's a certainly polarizing thinker and speaker, and I don't unequivocally agree with everything that he says, but I do think that he says a lot of things that are true and interesting and always well thought out. You can disagree with him, but it's hard to fault his logic or his lines of thinking. And what he said is he talked about the way they program people to let go of phobias. And they've got this inoculation process where he talked about a guy being afraid of needles. And so, in the day one, they talk about needles and maybe they show him a picture of one. And then day two, they actually bring a needle into the room, but they leave it across the room. Day three, he touches it and so forth until he's at the point where he can actually get an injection without having he doesn't have to enjoy it, but without freaking out the way people with a phobia does. And what Jordan Peterson said is that the process itself, how you do that, doesn't really matter. It's going to be different for almost every person, but the intention of getting over this fear, the willingness to do what it takes to get over this will mean that you will be successful eventually. So I think if you go into a situation with the sincere desire to change something, to change some aspect, or to frame something differently, the process almost will take care of itself. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
and I think that's important because the way that you change something in your life might not be the same way that I do, but the intention at the root of it is, I think, what really sparks that change.
So you could say it's going off of like having like a very powerful reason behind
Yes,
what
the
you're doing.
why
Like,
always matters more than the what, and that is something that I say technically as a coach, but also in a mind frame sense. Why you do anything matters more than what you do.
mhm,
The why is what's going to push you through the darkest times, right? If you have a good why, it doesn't matter how difficult things are, you will still find a way to get to the end.
I think trying to find that why is just being self-aware a lot of the time. I think a lot of people are scared to look internally and kind of see what they're not, or
Yeah,
like because everyone, especially with social media nowadays, we put out a front of who we are, what we want to be, who we even think we are, but internally we don't want to actually admit, okay, this is the real Brandon or this is the real Rory, because
yeah,
it's scary, it's embarrassing maybe. We're like, fuck, man, like I'm not as successful, I'm not
yeah.
where I want to be, and so it's easier to front.
It is. It is. I mean, I think about some of my failures. Talking about my first fight and being knocked out in that first fight. There's very little that is more humiliating for a fighter than being knocked unconscious. And that was my first fight, and everybody in the world that I loved came out to watch it. Some of the people in my life were kind of shitty about that. They thought it was funny and made some comments. And it's very difficult to approach that kind of failure objectively when you're dealing with that. But it is important. It is important to objectively look at yourself. I think that's why it's so important to try new things constantly as
Mhm.
well, because it gives you more data
Yeah,
to understand what you're going to be good at, what you need to work on, and what you're maybe very good at right now.
yeah. I think obviously like we're in the age of anxiety and depression. Right?
Yeah.
This is like the is what it is, right? A lot of people go through it, and how to rectify that. I think that it is embracing kind of what you need to fix, because it's easy to keep running from the problem. But if you want to fix that problem internally, you need to address exactly what the issue is. Like,
Mm,
what aren't you happy with? What can be fixed? What structure isn't working? And to do that, like, you need to embrace the shitty moment of it, whether it's you putting yourself in an environment, you putting yourself into a conversation, but like figuring that out for yourself, right? So,
yeah, and I think way too many people are satisfied living at a 4 or a 5 out of 10 all the time.
so why do you think that is, though?
So there's I read another really interesting book, one that you probably find fascinating. It was called The Undoing Project, and
Okay.
this is about two psychologists. they actually ended up winning a Nobel Prize for economics, even though they were psychologists. They studied the science of human decision making, and the science of human bias. Really, really interesting. I read it from a coaching standpoint because when I analyze a fighter, you're very prone to confirmation bias and all sorts of problems. But one of the things that they talked about is the emotion that colors human decision. There's one emotion that colors almost every human decision, and you expect it to be like desire or love or something like that. It is a fear of regret. You know, that idea,
Mhm.
FOMO, fear of regret, colors more decision making in human beings. And I think prevents them from doing more than almost anything else. People are not chasing pleasure; they are working to avoid discomfort. And that's the reality of the vast majority of people. So people would rather stay at a 5 than risk falling to a 2. But as you know, you've done. I mean, you're pretty amazing. You've done some pretty amazing stuff. The ultra marathons, even jumping into jujitsu the way that you have to be comfortable with the idea that this is gonna suck. This is really, really gonna suck. You're gonna drop to a 2, maybe to a 1, but then you get to a 10.
Yeah.
Right? Like, yes, some moments in your life are gonna be a 2, but some moments are gonna be a 10. And I would rather have that than be a 4 or a 5 forever. Like, I don't like that flat line.
No.
I think that's the way most people are.
Look, it's going off to like the pain and pleasure thing, right? This
Yeah.
is just so fascinating, right? Because like if you start associating, there's gonna be so much pain with this certain event long term,
Mm,
then you're gonna address it, right? Just like if there's gonna be a lot of pleasure with the long, so like the long term result's gonna be so pleasurable
yeah.
that drives you. So there's reasons I do ultra marathons. They absolutely suck. I want to quit them
Yeah.
while I'm in them,
I wouldn't run
obviously.
if my house is on fire. So it's mind boggling.
Right? But like there's so much pain involved. But the reason I can push through or even want to sign up for a tougher one 3 days after I wanted to quit one
Yeah.
is the idea that there's so much pleasure waiting for me at the end.
Yeah.
So it's that dichotomy of yes, there's going to be a lot of immediate pain, but the long term pleasure is quite good.
Yeah.
Where if I go for something that has immediate pleasure, which is like maybe eating like shit, skipping the gym, I don't know, just doing the easy thing, the path of least resistance, there's a lot of pain to that, which is where the regret and disappointment comes in, right?
Yeah.
So it's just that funny balance. Like now I look for opportunities. I'm like, okay, this is going to be quite painful or uncomfortable or off the bat because I understand and I realize at the end of the tunnel,
Hmm.
there's a lot of light there. And there's a
There's a
lot of
lot of
light
good
that
waiting.
exactly a lot of people don't even give themselves a chance to realize and come to fruition, which is sad, unfortunately, right? Because
Yeah.
you try telling people like, and like you're not supposed to feel like this. You know, there actually is an aspect for you to kind of get to where you can feel really good internally and externally, and have these different feelings of success and accomplishment and achievement that a lot of people don't even give themselves a chance to see through, right?
Well, I think the modern world tries to insulate people against failure a
Yeah,
lot.
for sure.
That's kind of the with the participation ribbon culture, and I think you know what I mean when I say that. That's pervasive everywhere.
Mhm.
I think that insulation against failure means that people don't experience it often enough to understand how necessary it is to be successful.
Mhm.
They don't experience it enough to realize that a failure isn't going to kill you. Losing a fight, losing a major situation isn't going to damage you irrevocably. It's going to provide opportunities to grow and succeed even more down the road. My biggest successes in my life have always come from my biggest failures. It's always been that pendulum swing from one to the other. And so I actually advocate for you've heard me say that in
Mhm.
in the gym. I think failure is where we get better.